Hi, this is Ruth Royal from Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm really pleased to be talking to Alan Welton today, who is outside sales and design from Seaward Safety. Hello, Alan, lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So, Alan, first of all, tell us a bit about Seaward Safety.
So we're a safety signage manufacturer for the offshore oil and gas industry. We're now moving into the wind industry as well, but we're predominantly being in the oil and gas industry for over 27 years.
Wow.
So we are, so we're a manufacturer of safety signage, but we're not just the manufacturer of safety signage. We actually do survey, manufacture, and install the signage as well offshore.
Gosh.
Depending on where the asset is around the world. So you've got fixed platforms for the oil and gas industry, but also have got drilling rigs that move around the world. So our orders and contracts and surveys and installation can be pretty much anywhere in the world. And then we have to be aware of the regulations of where the rig is working and what platform it's working near to. So yeah, we're up on the regulations of the signage, that does change as well.
It sounds amazingly complex for something that you think, well, you've got a site that, you feel like it could be quite simple, but obviously not, especially in such a heavily regulated industry.
Yeah.
And does that mean for some of your team members, they get to travel around?
Yes, there's a lot of travelling. Certainly a lot of travelling when it comes to the surveying. You can't tend to survey a rig in detail from the office here. You have to physically go out there, work from drawings that we're given from the client, and then cross-checking, and then walking the routes, finding out what signage is required, and then we put a full report together and we give that to the client. So yeah, there is a lot of travelling involved. Once that report is sent to the client, they review it. If they're happy, we put a quote to it, and then if they want to go ahead, we manufacture, we design everything in-house here and manufacture.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And then we send all the signs in a big box, ship it to the yard or to a site where they then send it off onto the rig or onto the platform, and then we send an installation team once it's on board after that to install.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's such a I'm sure that's such a long process. Do you in terms of like all those different components, it sounds really quite complicated. So for the different people that work in your organisation, Alan, does that link to kind of like, you've got this survey, quote, design, manufacture, dispatch, and then install? Do people do different jobs at each of those phases, or do some people do jobs that kind of overarch?
Yeah, they do tend to cross over. So the person that would know more about the job itself would be the surveyor. So that they do tend to get involved at most stages, and are there for to get advice, to get knowledge on the how the sign would need to be designed, for instance. And then it's about fixing. So you've got a standalone sign, but you need to think about how it's going to be installed. So then the surveyor's obviously been on board, and he or she would know that the sign would then need to be using clamps that need to be a certain size depending on the bars of what the sign is being attached to. So it's always referencing to them. And then when it comes to the installation, the surveyor tends to go and do the install as well as like a leading hand. And then there's people with him or her, and he'd be leading hand on the project. And again, they'd be referencing back to the surveyor install.
What sort of skills does a surveyor need to be able to do all those different aspects of what you do?
Our surveying team, you would need to have offshore certificates, offshore survival certificates for a start. That is a minimum requirement, because a lot of what we do is offshore. And then you would need some experience of working offshore. But if you're new to it, then we are willing to take on people who have not got the experience, because sometimes it might be the case that the person is, you know, we can see they're more than capable of doing the job, but don't have any experience.
Yeah.
We would then send them off to a job with a surveyor and shadow them.
Oh wow, brilliant.
Yeah, we've actually recently done that in the last couple of months.
Oh, fantastic.
You started here, and zero experience working offshore, got their offshore survival ticket, and then went for a job and building up the experience, you know, with each trip. And the project that he actually went on was it's one of the biggest platforms in the North Sea. So he's,
oh my gosh.
It started off on quite a big platform. So they're only really going to get smaller from there on.
Yeah. Everything else will feel tiny after going
yeah,
there.
exactly. So yeah.
To different people. So do you have sort of different levels then within your surveying team? Do you have sort of more junior members and more experienced members?
We're quite a small team now, actually. So we did have personnel at different levels that would mainly aim to, because we also work in the marine industry and ferry industry. So there'd be some people that would work on the ferry industry because they have the experience in that, for instance. And if it's oil and gas projects, they would work on the oil and gas projects. But at the moment, we're a lot smaller. The surveying and installation team work on all the projects.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, we find that's the best way, actually, because then they build up their experience rapidly.
And I'm sure that sort of gives a continuity as well.
Yeah.
So do people then also have to have, like, because if they're surveying and also perhaps being part of installing, do they need to have sort of good practical skills or a knowledge of like how those practical skills work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you need to follow drawings. On the drawings, it would detail the actual sign that would need to be put into a certain location on the platform or on the rig. And then you would need to, you'd need to know what size bolts, clamps, and nuts, and washers and everything else. So you need to be very basic level of practicality. But there would be a level of that, for sure. But we don't have qualified engineers here, for instance. You know, we don't tend to need that level of expertise. It's a lower level because it's, I say, only signage, but it is signage. Yeah,
absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. That preempts sort of the question I was just going to ask about whether or not you need people who've got specific technical skills in terms of what they do. So that's sort of the surveying and the engineering, which seems to me you need a mixture. You need really good attention to detail. You need to be able to follow the plans. You need to be able to execute them, but also you need to be able, almost like the insight and the creativity to look at a place and think, right, what's needed here, and be able to combine that with your knowledge of what's required on each platform in each country that you're visiting.
Knowing the regulations that's required in those countries.
And then, so what sort of other jobs do people do? Because do you for example have a different job again?
So I'm a sales representative for the products that we sell with the clients that we work with. So I tend to travel to Aberdeen, so I go and meet the client. I've been to Aberdeen, I've been to the Middle East. So I cover Europe and the Middle East for our clients. So I've been to Aberdeen a couple of times this year. I'm going again next month. I'm off to Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the end of October, and then I'm off to Amsterdam in November.
Gosh.
Offshore wind exhibition.
So in your job, you have to enjoy travelling.
Yeah, a little bit, yes. Yeah, it's not full on. I do a lot from the office, you know, team calls. Now that's advanced a lot more. And it's not frowned upon with the client anymore. It was our only option, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So I can do a lot of that from here now. So that's good. But I also cover design as well. So So I have my original job here was designer for 18 years.
Gosh.
And so that's initially what I trained in college to do, and then started working here at 17, and then yeah, just building up the experience, knowing the products. The company was only 4 years old when I started.
Oh my gosh.
So we were relatively not low in experience, but our product range was half the size of what it is now. So I've kind of built with the company and knowing the products that we sell to the clients. And then I got the opportunity to go to an exhibition in Aberdeen actually, and I was quite nervous, I must admit, but that's good. Nerves is good. And met some clients, had some one-to-one meetings, which I've never done before, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed engaging with the client and realised that everybody's human. They're not scary. You know, they're nice people. 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, they are really nice people. And yeah, and now I cover Europe and the Middle East for sales, and wider if I can find the work. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's so interesting about how you've grown sort of with the company, in your role. What sort of skills or qualities do you think? I mean, obviously the design side with the experience that you gained sort of initially in training, but then also in real life in your job. What sort of what sort of qualities do you think also kind of make you enjoy that sales role as well as the creative role?
Well, I've always been a very sociable person, you know, always liked having conversations with people, and, you know, I don't think you really can say it about yourself, but I suppose a people person, you know, I like having chats with people, all sorts of, you know, from young to old, you know, always open to conversation, asking questions. And I think that's one of the key things of being a salesperson, is asking questions about who you're talking to, not necessarily about the products or their requirements, about them as general. So yeah, I like having conversations, you know. Yeah, I think that's one of my you know, things I realised, that after, you know, working in an office for 18 years behind a desk, still conversing with people in the office obviously, but when you meet new people and opportunities and conversations, it's all new all the time. And then seeing new places as well when I do get to travel, and the company are happy for me to, you know, do a little bit of sightseeing. It's all part of the job really. You know, spreading your wings a little bit. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a really interesting job. What sort of kind of entry level type roles might there be, if there are any, into where you are, Alan?
Well, because we do all the way from survey through to installation, there's always certainly conversations to be had regarding openings. I mean, I started here when I was 17. A colleague of mine who was in design as well, who's now marketing creative manager for the group, he was also 17 when he started here, and my other colleague who now runs the design department, I think he was 19. So the company's always been open to younger people, because they've got new ideas, new opportunity, you know, new thoughts, and new ways of thinking of things. So certainly from a design perspective, I think there's always conversations to be had regarding positions. Certainly for offshore surveying and installation, you know, I think there's always another conversation to be had there for sure. The company is doing pretty well at the moment, so with the oil and gas industry and that potentially changing again with what's happening in the world, and obviously the wind industry, we're looking to get into that more. So yeah, from surveying, installation, offshore work, and like I said, we manufacture in-house as well. So printing, we've got a couple of UV printing machines here,
Wow.
and cutting and routing machines that cut the signs when they or prepare the signs before they're printed, or prepare them after they've been printed. We laminate everything as well. So there's various machines that need to be worked with. If the work really does pick up, there would be opportunities in the manufacturing side as well.
Oh, that's fantastic to understand, like the different areas of the business that exist. And I guess sort of just finally, Alan, to wrap up, if you were to go back and have a conversation with, you know, sort of 17-year-old Alan starting out at Seaward Safety, what bit of career advice do you think you would give yourself?
I would take more chances. I wouldn't have sat behind the desk for 18 years. I'd have, and I did think about it at the time, actually. You know, when I was not 17, but maybe early 20s. You know, I think I would like to do some sales, but I never took that jump. Never asked. I eventually did get asked, but that was quite a while after. That was obviously 18 years after starting. So I think, and it wasn't the case of, you know, lack of confidence. I think it was just thinking that that's that role. I couldn't do that role. Surely I can do that role. But you know, I think you just need to back yourself a little bit more sometimes, and actually you can do it. And you know, like for instance, you know, a job interview, you're a little bit nervous, but nerves are good. It focuses the brain. And when you start a new job, you're going to be nervous on the first day, but then you go back to the second day, you know, the nerves aren't there as much, and then third day and fourth day and then the week and the month, and then you're fine. And the same with the new role. You know, I was very nervous, and then eventually grew into it, and found my capabilities, and I'm always learning in the role. So which is nice, you know, when you're moving around, speaking to different people, you're learning about the products, but also learn how to what requirements there are in the industry more so than anything, and having conversations about that. Yeah.
Oh, well, Alan, I love that line of sort of take more chances as your note to end on. I think that's a great piece of advice. I think we can often all do with being braver, more courageous, for asking for that thing and believing in ourselves. Thank you so much for your time. It's been great to talk to you today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.